Here we go, the abstract landscape. You have your photo of somewhere significant in your community, and now you need to use Photoshop to help with the abstraction process. Because here's why. Here's a traditional landscape that shows a realistic treatment of subject matter, local color, which means that the colors are realistic. They're being depicted in a way that they would have actually been in real life. And the laws of perspective are being used accurately. So, in other words, the artist is using, in this case, 1 point perspective and also some atmospheric perspective in order to show a foreground, middle ground, and background. So, to show a deep sense of depth. We want to do something more like this. We want to abstract. Now, we've already investigated the process of abstraction in lots of different ways, actually, throughout the semester. So we know that to abstract means to simplify, to reduce imagery to simple shapes, geometric shapes, and organic shapes, and remove detail. So basically, all those three things mean simplify, but that's just being a little bit more specific. So we can tell that this is a landscape, looks like an outdoor rural scene, but imagery has been simplified, reduced to shapes, like for instance, the shapes within the, looks like farm land. There's buildings, we can still recognize them, but they're represented as geometric shapes. The color is not local, the color is abstract. It's different, it's representational of maybe how the artist felt emotionally at the time upon looking at this landscape. A lot of landscape artists still work from photos, just like you will be. Here's another one. I love this one. The repetition of the houses and just the strong geometric shapes makes it so eye-catching. And here's another one that has, this is a good example of using color to represent mood. So you'll have to think about that. How do you want to use color in order to influence the vibe or the mood of your artwork? Do you want it to be bright and cheery? Do you want the colors to be intense? Do you want them to be more muted? And do you want the colors to be drab and gray, kind of like this one? Here's an example where the artist has flattened the scene. So the artist is not so concerned with creating a deep sense of space anymore. It's almost like all these buildings are being represented on the same plane. Very interesting. Notice the loose brushwork. And again, reduction of detail, simplification, use of strong geometric shapes. This one's really abstract. Almost like the artist is playing with the idea of how the ground looks like a patchwork quilt, a quilt made of patches. This is an opportunity to utilize line. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to actually, I like this example here. Yeah. So notice how on the ground by the houses, there's shapes that maybe represent vegetation or maybe even shadows, but just notice how they're not outlined. However, many of the shapes are outlined, like for instance, the shapes that represent what looks like a road or a couple roads, and then even the houses themselves have a little bit of outline to them. But yet, if we look at the trees behind the house that's farthest away, they are not outlined, nor are the different parts of the sky. So this is an opportunity where the artist has purposely and strategically used line as a decorative element. So this is an opportunity for you to do that. Here we have a little bit of line use, but we have lots of value contrast being used to differentiate one shape from another. So you will be working in color, so it's important to Think about the value of the color. I love the perspective of this one. It's another example where it's everything's flattened. So it's hard to tell, like, are we looking at this scene from the sky down? Because we're kind of seeing the top of what looks like a boat. But on the other hand, it seems like we're looking at the buildings in the distance head on, like level. So very interesting. So when we work abstract, we can do that. We can break the laws of perspective in order to create an abstract appearance to our composition, where we're kind of playing with what the viewer expects. This one is very abstract again. We basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes, but we know exactly what they represent. A mountainous landscape. So here's how you use Photoshop. First of all, you're going to have to email your photo to yourself. So here's my photo. Okay, and I have to now download it to this computer that I'm working on. So I go up in the top right corner and I use the download arrow. That's going to go to my downloads folder. Now I can minimize Chrome and I can open up Photoshop. It's in the start menu. Photoshop. This machine has 2021 and 2018. So I guess I'll try opening up 2021. Yours might only have 2018, so that's fine. It really doesn't matter. The features in Photoshop that we are going to use have been in Photoshop for years, and so rest assured those tools will be there for you regardless of the version of Photoshop that you use. And if you're having a hard time loading Photoshop because maybe it's asking you to log into your Adobe account or something, then just ask for help. Now, once Photoshop opens, you don't really have to create an artboard or anything. Oh, this is loading up the last file that I would have worked on this machine. This is actually a painting that I was working on at home last summer. It represents my mom in the garden. I'm going to close it. Just because when you open up Photoshop, it'll look maybe something like this. So anyway, all you got to do is go to open. Now, I have a little open button on the left side of my workspace here, but you might have to just go up to File, Open. Either way, what you want to do is navigate to your Downloads folder and open up the photo that you just recently downloaded. The photo of the community or part of the community that you took. So here's the photo that I've been using as an example, my Riverbend photo. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit by going Control Plus. We're actually going to use a filter with our photo. But when we use filters in Photoshop, we permanently change the photo. We don't just lay another layer on top like an adjustment layer. So because of that, we want to have a backup, a safety net. So go to your layers panel and right click on the background layer, which is the only layer you have so far, and choose duplicate layer. And it can just be called the background copy. Then you can go ahead and turn that the first layer off, the one that's called background. You can turn it off by clicking on the little human eye icon on the left side of the layers panel. Make sure the background copy is selected. Now go up to the word filter in the top menu and choose filter gallery. We're going to use one of the filters in the artistic family. So expand the artistic filter collection and choose cutout. You can zoom in a little bit by clicking on Control Plus. So the cutout filter is interesting because it abstracts for us. It reduces the imagery into shapes. And if you play with the number of levels slider, you can modify the simplicity of the shapes. If you make the number of levels smaller, you will simplify the composition even more. And so play around with it and get it to a level that you're happy with in terms of the level of abstraction that you like. And you can actually manually punch in numbers too. I think I like 5 or 6. I want it simple, but I want enough shapes to give me some visual complexity. I think I might go with 5. You can play with the edge simplicity too, and that's also going to modify the level of abstraction. And once again, if you increase the edge simplicity, it's going to simplify things even more. If you reduce it, it'll add more detail. So remember, we're trying to remove some detail. So play with that a little bit until, again, you get it to a point that you're happy with. I think I'll leave mine on 5. And then edge fidelity is another setting that you can play with in order to modify the level of abstraction. Keep in mind that you'll be adding your own sort of natural abstraction when you start adding color and developing these shapes. I really like that number 1, actually. But I'm thinking that maybe number 2 maintains the, sort of tree quality of the scene. Yeah. So I think I'm going to go with 2 on edge fidelity. Once you're satisfied, click OK. And you see you still have that background layer as a backup there, but we do have our new abstract version of the photo. Now, don't feel that you need to use the local color of the photo, meaning the color that you see in the photo. I want you to really think about all the color options you have and consider how you might use color to create a mood. So you might choose to use really vibrant, intense colors, or maybe you'll use muted, low intensity colors. And as you know from previous projects, we want to focus more on value than hue. And so here's what we can do. We can put a black and white adjustment layer on top of our photo. So go to the bottom of your layers panel and click on the circle that looks like it's half black, half white, and choose black and white. Now, this is not going to actually change the photo itself. It's only going to put an adjustment layer on top. And you can actually modify the value of the shapes by playing with the color sliders. So even though we're in black and white now, the colors are still underneath. And so when we play with these sliders, it changes the value of the colors. And so you could make some value adjustments to your photo. So just take the time to play with that. Once you're happy with the abstraction of your photo, it's time to save this file as a JPEG. So we simply go up to File, Save As, and we want to choose JPEG. If this comes up for you, make sure you save on your computer, not to a cloud. But if you're using Photoshop 2018, you likely won't get this window. It'll probably just look like something like this. Okay, so give it some kind of a name. So mine's called Down the Road at RB. I'll just leave it like that. Save as type. We don't want it to remain a Photoshop file. We want it to be a JPEG. And we want it to go to the desktop. So you might have to click on this PC because desktop might not be showing on your left side there. Mine's up here at the top. You could scroll around until you find it. But if you don't find it, if you click this PC, desktop will come up as a shortcut right there, second from the top. Double click it. Okay, so that's good enough. So the JPEG is going to the desktop save, and the JPEG option window will come up, and you can put it on about let's put it on 7. Medium is probably good enough. Okay, that's it. So now we've used Photoshop to help with the abstraction of our photo. We've reduced imagery into shapes. We've thought about value. And what you want to do now is share this image with Mr. Marchenko, because I'm going to help you get it onto your project paper. Okay, so best way to do this is get it into your drive. So you know how to do that. We're going to go to your drive. Maybe you have an art folder in your drive. I'll go into my Art 10 folder here, into my art and culture, and I'm going to go hit the new button, file, upload, navigate to the desktop, find that file down the road at RB. There it is. Boom, bringing it into my drive. Okay, so now I can just right click it in my drive and I can use the share setting to share it with whoever. So in this case, I'm asking you to share it with me so that we can project it. That's it. That's how you use Photoshop to abstract the photo that you've taken so that we can take it to an abstraction level similar to what we see in these examples that I've gone through with you. Ask for help if you need it. Have fun.